Hi, this is Mace. I am doing my very first ever D&D instructional video to teach you how to play D&D. Hopefully, I'll be able to also have a live streaming of my D&D games. But I just wanted to start off with what is D&D and how do you play it? This is the 5th edition Player's Handbook, the very first essential book that you need if you want to play D&D. Again, this is 5th edition. There are other editions before this. I started back when 3rd edition came out in about 2000, and we've gone up to 5th, and more about that later. So again, this is the very first book you're going to need, the Player's Handbook. You can get it at any comic book or hobby store, as well as on Amazon and anywhere else online, including the official D&D website, the Dungeons and Dragons website. You also need dice, at least one good set. You could also get online or in a hobby or comic book store, gaming store. The main dice you're going to use is the D20. It is a 20-sided dice. These come in many different shapes and sizes and colors, and well, the shape's pretty much the same, but colors and styles. So the 20s, there are D12s, D10s, also called percentiles, because you can use them to roll percentages. I have a few of those. Let's see, we have D8s, something like this, 8-sided die. D6s, you're going to need a lot of those actually. So it's good to get the ones that come with the set, as well as just some extra ones on the side that you can get a pack of. Again, online or most gaming hobby stores will have them. And then D4s. D means dice, and then the number is how many sides the dice has. So D20 has 20 sides, D12 has 12 sides, so on and so forth. So there's a different dice you need. It's good to have a couple different sets of them for superstitious reasons. You also need a notebook to keep notes in, and you can also keep track of character stats in them, or even use the paper to make character sheets. The book itself was also going to have character sheets that you can use, and we'll go over all of that in just a moment. So you can either print these out, you can either copy these out of the book, print these out online, or you can do what I do and just make your own. So the first thing as far as making a character is, well, playing D&D is making a character. So what you first need to decide is your race. Race is going to refer to, are you a human? Are you an elf? Are you an orc? Are you a dwarf? All the different things. We'll go into more detail on those in later videos. I just want to do a basic one right now. You also want to be able to choose a class. What class you're going to be, like a fighter, a ranger. What do you want to be combat? Do you want to cast spells? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? What kind of character do you want to play? Think of it in terms of like Lord of the Rings. Do you want to be Aragorn? Do you want to be Sauron? Do you want to be Saruman? Do you want to be Legolas? Do you want to be Gimli? Who do you want to be? What kind of character do you want to play? And then you go from there. So the first, after you decide that, you would choose your stats, which are here on the official character sheet: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. You can think of these in terms of a tomato. Strength tells you if you can squeeze a tomato in your hand. Dexterity means can you dodge or throw a tomato. Constitution, can you eat a rotten tomato and not get too sick? Intelligence, are you smart enough to know that a tomato is actually a fruit? Wisdom, Are you wise enough to know that a tomato does not go in a fruit salad? And finally, charisma. Do you have a high enough charisma where you can sell somebody a fruit salad with tomato in it? And that's how I like to think of them. To determine your stats, you roll d6s. The game you're going to play determines how many you roll, as well as the DM, which is called the Dungeon Master, will give you rules on: do you roll this many d6s? Do you roll this many d6s? Some might want to do a point buy, which means you have so many number of points, and each stat you can put so many points into, so on and so forth. There are many different ways to do it. So if you are getting ready to play and you have someone that's DMing, dungeon mastering for you, talk to them about how you want them to do your stats. You also want to take your hit points. Hit points depend on your class, like we talked about earlier. Different classes have different hit points. Obviously, a large, beefy barbarian is going to have more hit points than a little wizard, for obvious reasons. Barbarians are going to be more in the front line, getting the heavy hits and making the heavy hits back. So they're going to need more hit points, while the wizards kind of stand back and go with their spells. They don't need as many hit points. Armor class is basically your armor, what kind of armor you're wearing, as well as your dexterity to be able to dodge, things like that. Initiative essentially means who goes first in a turn. So when you have a party, a group of players, you're going to roll initiative whenever you start combat. And whoever has the highest initiative goes first, and then the next highest goes next, so on and so forth. So that basically just determines who goes when in a combat round. Your speed is how fast you run. Some games you can use a grid sheet, and each square is 5 feet, and then people use miniatures. Not like these are my daughter's miniatures, but just to give you an idea, little miniatures, and you move them around, and say you have a 20 feet move, then you'll move 4 squares, 5, 10, 15, 20. Just as an example. Your attacks are how hard you can hit, how well you are hitting. In 5th edition, it's going to be a combination of your strength bonus plus what 5th edition has called a proficiency bonus, which we'll go into more detail later. And combining those will give you your strength attack. And then you roll a d20, add it to that, and that determines if you hit based on your opponent's armor class. And then when they hit you back, they have to beat your armor class using those same statistics. Also, your skills come into play. It's basically what your character is good at. There's athletics, animal handling, arcana, deception, history, insight, intimidation, investigation, medicine, nature, perception, persuasion, religion, sleight of hand, stealth, and survival. More into those in detail later, but basically you would have your proficiency if you're proficient in the skill, plus the ability modifier for each of those skills, and you would add that to a d20 roll. And that's how you determine your skill roll. If you would need to perceive something, perception, make a perception roll is what it would be called, and then based on your roll, your DM will tell you, okay, well, you're able to see this, but you don't see this, so on and so forth. Traits and other abilities are basically based on your class and race. Again, more on that later in other videos. But again, this is just to give you a basic information, a basic how-to. So, like I said, you would choose your race and class. You would roll your stats with d6s based on what your DM says you would roll. and then you would use that to make a character. So each race is going to have different abilities and modifiers for the abilities and different features, and then each class is going to have different features, and then you have leveling, which means when you gain so much experience, you basically become better at being that character, or you have the option to choose to start being a different character and taking different classes, not a different character, but different classes, and multi-classing. Go into that more later. Again, just the basics. So that's really it for now. Again, this is my very first video, so wish me luck, and thanks.